One patient at a time, changing the world. So this is what Stan said yesterday night, and it really resonates with me. We try to also, we are pioneer at Biogen, and we cannot be more honored to host you today. When I'm thinking about, Sloan, Anna, Margot, Connor, Susanna, Lena, so many of those patients, for them n-Lorem is the only hope. And during the panel today, we are going to discuss how we can sustain that hope. How can we continue to contribute? What does it make sense for us as industry to be part of this vision, to be part of this project, but also nonprofit? So I'm very excited. I'm joined by different people with very different background. I will start with the people from the industry. So Dara Croci, you lead the Danaher Foundation, and Dr. Dan Curran, you're at Takeda. You are the head of rare genetics and hematology, therapeutics there. And Kurt Andersson, you lead, that is going to be a hard one for me, the genomic medicine at Cytiva.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Better than it is, but that's okay.
And you will provide us with an industry perspective. We have nonprofit, with the Wolverine Foundation and McCooe. And of course, a patient perspective, but also an entrepreneur perspective. And I think you are going to help us think a little bit out of the box. So my first question to all of you, and I will start with you, Kurt, is what attracted you to n-Lorem? As a company, why did you decide to partner to this organization?
Okay, thank you very much. Very privileged to be here representing Cytiva and Danaher. So it really started early to mid-1990s when Stan Crook's company Ionis and Cytiva formed a very fruitful collaboration. And what we did was to provide instrumentation, DNA RNA synthesizer, which was used by Ionis to make a new type of therapeutics, synthetic oligonucleotides. And over the years, we developed lots of special relationships. So in January 21, Max Moore contacted us, me and actually a colleague from Sweden, Andersson, and wanted to explain the vision of n-Lorem and Stan Crook's dream, which is to provide free-for-life treatment for young patients with nano-rare illnesses. So that kind of came very close to heart for me and Karina, so we felt we must do something or whatever we can. And the next step then was to figure out how can we get funding for all this. So we got in touch with our donation guru, Ryan Walker, and he presented or showed us the procedure that we have in place, which is a very intense procedure. It's 5 minutes of presentation in front of the donation committee, 2 slides, basically cram in very basic what you want to do, but still to make it very impactful. And then there was like a few Q&A from the donation committee, and they were deciding on the spot, and they decided to approve. And this was in May 21. And in June 21, we were happy to share the news with n-Lorem. So that was a great event. The continuation of that, we of course wanted to continue to give. So in 2022, the awareness of n-Lorem grew within Cytiva and Danaher, and very much thanks to Ryan Walker. And we were able to give more donations from different groups within the company. And currently we're working on 2024 donation. So that's kind of what attracted us, and we really appreciate to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Dana, I know you're trying to convince the foundation board to partner with n-Lorem. So I'm just curious about what are the arguments you are building and how what n-Lorem does connect to your mission.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today. I think, expanding on what my colleague Kurt has kind of just touched upon, really the relationship starting with Cytiva and product donation, it was an easy introduction and relationship to build with n-Lorem, given the mission, right, that we're all familiar with. And Danaher recently undergoing a separation of its water quality and product identification platforms into its own publicly traded company allowed both Danaher and the new company Veralto to really expand in their areas of interest. This allows Danaher and gives Danaher the opportunity to focus on being a science and technology innovator in the space. And so with that, I think focusing on those underserved populations in a critical need area like the N of 1 and rare disease patients is of critical interest. And so aligning with the business, the areas of interest, and our foundation strategy from a philanthropic standpoint really excited us to be able to kind of start that conversation and hopefully expand beyond and enhance the current partnership that Cytiva has grown over the past years to be able to do more and have more of an impact.
Thank you. Yep. Dan, from so you're a scientist. You're leading the business there at Takeda. So what I decided, and I know you are a significant partner for n-Lorem. So, I think you're called a hero. So, can you tell us why you decided to invest in n-Lorem?
Yeah, certainly. So first, thanks for hosting this event here at Biogen. It's wonderful to see so many faces of people, of patients and advocates for rare diseases. So I lead the rare disease efforts at Takeda. Takeda's had a long and storied history developing medicines for patients with rare disease. But note I say rare disease. I don't say ultra rare, and I don't say nano-rare. And we can't do that simply because of the commercial interests in a large organization. However, we see the incredible need that patients have, their families have, and we know the technology exists to in fact treat these patients. So we felt it was our duty, we were compelled to say, how can we help support these patients? You can't work in rare diseases and then look at certain patients who perhaps just because there are too few of them in the world, you can't try to provide some help for these patients. And so we were really excited, obviously, to be supporters of Stan and the n-Lorem Foundation because you're doing such incredible work. So
I'd like to come back to the point about incremental innovation. And when we prepare the panel, we talk about that. So of course, we're doing that for the foundation, for philanthropy, but there is a benefit to the science. And I'm just curious, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how do you see what n-Lorem is doing, potentially breaking new ground for more research or more advancement that can become them of interest for the business?
Yeah, I think there are a number of ways, and I think it's so important to, Stan and I were chatting, to preserve these samples and to be able to have access to these samples broadly for use for discovery purposes and for translational purposes. So in industry, obviously, we look to try to tackle diseases where we believe that we can transform the disease through whatever technology platform, whether it be an ASO or a gene therapy. But we critically need to have validated markers to try to understand why these diseases are progressing, how they're progressing, what's the clinical phenotype. So there's such a treasure trove of information that's going to be found here over the course of the coming years and decades that industry, I'm quite sure, would be very interested in having. So that might be another source of actually raising some capital in the future for the n-Lorem Foundation. But it also, as I think about the approaches you're taking with the regulatory authorities, giving them the opportunity to see that ASOs are safe and well tolerated, and if you can give these ASOs to patients for years and years and years, that helps us in the industry say, look, there are opportunities here to have dialogues with a regulatory authority, whether it be the FDA or the EMEA, to say this platform is a safe platform. So it may lower the barriers for us in industry to tackle ever rarer diseases because we don't have to necessarily do long-term studies. We can use the data that's been established by n-Lorem and potentially others to essentially hopefully ease the way, if you will, to develop these life-saving therapies.
Thank you. Amy, I know you have also perspective from an early research perspective, so maybe you can share, why your organization is partnering with n-Lorem.
Initially, Stan had us at hello, if you can still say that. We came in, we met Stan, and that was it for us. But it's really interesting. I just want to touch on what you were just saying, because what n-Lorem has been able to do, and I think they do this with a lot of patient family foundations and organizations, is we did have incremental research, and we had this basic research that we didn't really know what to do with, and n-Lorem was really able to help us pull it together and move forward and provide a solution, and that's what we were looking for. So that was one of the key reasons that we went with Stan and n-Lorem, and have been, really, it's been an amazing experience.
You're a patient, family member. I think you have spent the last 2 years taking care of your granddaughter and helping n-Lorem. Can you tell us more about your personal journey with n-Lorem and why you get involved? Because you can just be a passive grandfather, and you certainly are not.
Well, when you get the diagnoses, those emotions are pretty intense. So trying to figure out what to do is where you start. And for me, I have a business background, no science background at all, and so it wasn't really an option to go out and try and learn the science and see if I could help in that way. Once you get into this a little further, you begin to understand that you can't do it yourself, and that what's good for the community is good for your daughter or my grandchild in this case. So figuring out ways to help the community, and that really revolved around funding. That is something that everybody that's interested or impacted by this can do, and I thought you had to go out and solve the world, and they're like, look, everything helps. So figuring out everything you can do to help generate funds, because every dollar is, somebody else that can be helped. Figuring out what level that you're going to get involved in is really what I've been trying to do, figure out what my lane is, because some people have certain amounts of time and other obligations, and other people have more time. I'm retired now, and I'm able to dedicate more time to this. So figuring out the level that you can participate is that next step, and working on both the bread and butter donations, and then trying to come up with some bigger programs to help is really what I've been focused on, and it's out of gratitude for these incredible scientists and people that are dedicating themselves to helping my granddaughter.
I'd like to stay with you for a minute, because I think you clearly have big ideas, and we talked about that yesterday with Dr. Gorgon from Biogen, and I'm sure there's people maybe in the room that would like to brainstorm with you. So can you share your big idea?
Well, these again, no scientific background, and so my immediate thought is you've got to come up with this solution at 30,000 feet, and Dr. Cook is no. don't do that. Here's where you need to start, and that type of guidance is what is important. To start with that doesn't mean that you can't come up with additional ideas, and I'm trying to move into those ways, because funding has been, figuring out adequate funding is challenging for rare disease and maybe personalized medicine in general, but trying to understand where that can go and understanding the possibilities and who are the downstream benefactors from this, and trying to come up with some type of approach to get those people involved on the front end, as opposed to waiting until this happens, and that benefit to the downstream folks that can use this technology is what I'm starting to think about. But again, my focus right now is on the bread and butter stuff, with looking at trying to do things like create some type of an association or a public benefit entity where these downstream benefactors can get involved up front to help fund this technology that's going to help potentially a lot of people. But other things, maybe there's the ability, for me, I'm looking at how, who in my community, and trying to define that community, whether it's KIF1A or Nano-rare or Phoenix or whatnot, figuring out how to explain the benefits of what n-Lorem in particular is doing and how that can benefit your community, and getting those folks involved up front. I mean, people need to be chasing Dr. Crook and n-Lorem, not the other way around. And we just need to explain that and come up, let the creative juices flow, and maybe come up with nano-rare insurance policies, or these public benefit entities, or other things like that, to try and come up with the broader dollar base that can help more patients.
Certainly, and I'm sure everyone in the room is potentially an advocate for n-Lorem with their own organization. I'd like to, of course, funding is the essential, and we need to sustain the model of n-Lorem, but there is other ways to help, and I'm just curious if some of the panelists want to share how they're helping beyond funding.
Yeah, I think from from my point, we're continuing to spreading the awareness of n-Lorem within our organization, and like I mentioned, we pushed it all the way up to corporate, and I have lots of discussion with Max Moore when they need some stuff, and we figure out how can we do it, and so that's kind of on my personal level.
Yeah, I do think you donate some equipment.
Yeah, we have the DNA RNA synthesizer, the actual machine that makes the oligonucleotide, and then that gets taken care of with other equipment to purify it and all that kind of stuff. So with the addition of the new lab at n-Lorem last year, that's where we got other groups involved, so they could donate lots more consumables that they would use on a daily basis, and that's where we hope to expand with 2024 donations, and actually give another synthesizer as well to increase the capacity or the development work at n-Lorem.
Dana, do you want to comment also? I think you're thinking also various ways to help.
Yes, exactly. I think this is the ideal situation to for Danaher at the enterprise level, being introduced to n-Lorem. The mission is so closely aligned to the work that we do as a science and tech company and diagnostics, and I think having the opportunity to work so closely with our operating companies, Cytiva and others, to identify where there are opportunities to support n-Lorem and or any other organization right in this space at the enterprise level. Now that we are supremely focused in this space, is identifying these more smaller scale local partnerships and expanding them beyond just what Cytiva is doing in product identification, but are there other players in this space within our family of Danaher that can contribute, and enhance the work that they're doing. I think from my perspective as working for Danaher and the Danaher Foundation, we're talking about philanthropic dollars essentially from the foundation. And so really what was critical for us, and we've been chatting with n-Lorem for probably the past year, just to identify what are those needs and trying to find that synergy and alignment for where our areas of interest may align with theirs. And I think that's probably the case across the board, whether you're supporting as a donor or partner in any capacity. And I think that's what's been very rewarding too, is there's lots of needs, which I know have been mentioned, but really identifying potentially and creative ways and solutions to provide additional support that can have impact that perhaps you're not aware of quite yet. High level, we understand what funding is needed, but funding can come in different forms: product donation, cost for consumables, things like that. So it's a really exciting time to kind of continue to build the partnership and have these conversations with n-Lorem.
Thank you. Dan, I'm sure you have additional input to that.
Yeah, no, I think certainly speaking for Takeda, but I think more generally, broadly throughout the industry, I think many ways that we could help n-Lorem is just the interactions that we have with our organizations, certainly with the regulatory bodies, We're constantly speaking. We have relationships, so they're arm's length relationships with many of the regulators within both the rare disease groups as well as more broadly. And to me, it's critical for us as an industry to try to help push the boundaries, because it's not only going to help n-Lorem, but it essentially will help our businesses as well, as we think about just the regulatory interactions. I think the other thing we need to think through is our public policy efforts. How can we, through our government affairs groups and our public affairs groups, say, this is a real public priority? I mean, we speak about nano-rare diseases, but as you go through it, every rare disease is completely underdiagnosed. We know this. And so as the n-Lorem organization continues to identify these patients, continues to treat these patients, the numbers are going to grow from tens to hundreds to eventually thousands of patients. And as a matter of course, you think about this at the public policy level and say, we have thousands of patients being impacted by disease. It's a necessity to say, how are we actually going to pay for these patients? And I think we need to get the insurance companies involved as well. I mean, essentially, n-Lorem is providing them free care and saving all of us quite a substantial amount of money, especially the insurance companies. So the question would be, how can they become good partners in this organization trying to help? So I think there are a number of ways that we in the industry can actually use sort of I won't call it our clout, but at least some of our influence.
Some kind of collaboration, totally.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward actually to the presentation about the reform that are needed, but also other advocates, groups like NORDS can potentially maybe also be more active on the nano-rare space, because n-Lorem, you need the community also in DC. So certainly an area where I think the industry can help through our network. Amy, do you want to add something on that point?
Well, I would just touch on something Stan mentioned this morning. Antisense is improving and the technology is improving. And so we really need to keep steps ahead with the research. And one of the things that we founded as a foundation, and I would think other patient groups and foundations are looking to do, is to really invest in that basic research and help n-Lorem invest in that basic research so you're keeping up with the pace of change.
Yeah.
Do you think there is enough involvement of the academic world? And we talked about that with Dr. Curran yesterday. Like, do you have enough support from university? Like, not because you have the industry, we have the business side, but like more university can help n-Lorem.
Absolutely, that's a critical line of communication. We've had a great experience, and I think if you can bring everyone together in that kind of communication, then you're bringing up all ships at once. So absolutely.
I mean, and this is like translational research and translational development at its finest, right? So this should be part of the mission, not just of academic centers, but as you think about the National Institutes of Health and NCATS, I mean, this should resonate with them deeply, right? I mean, this is, I think, one of the missions that they should be aspiring to help n-Lorem organization, because it's in essence just basic translational research and basic translational development, which can be utilized beyond the particular disease that you're trying to treat.
So I have a final question: is how are the people in the room or the people that are watching the webcast? You give them a lot of ideas, but how can they help? Like, how much more can we do? Do you have ideas? What would you encourage them to do?
Every dollar helps is what I've come to understand. And you don't have to solve all the world's problems to help n-Lorem. Coming up with ways to get your community, whether that's your local school or your local hospital or folks in the healthcare industry in your community, to help n-Lorem in their mission, which I think the explanation needs to be made that in helping them, you're helping your own community. And I think that's where this needs to go, and not just on, even though they're nano-rare, they're very clear about that, but the benefits are dramatically beyond that.
The potential breakthrough that can come.
Yes.
Amy?
Ditto. I love it.
Do you want to other ideas?
What else can we add after that, right?
Yeah. I think it's just to continue advocating. That's the biggest important thing, I think. Make people aware and get in there and help out as much as you can to whatever capacity. I mean, we're so different people here from each other, but we're still helping.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I think it was great. I hope everybody is inspired to continue to help, to do more, to spread the voice. and to help n-Lorem to gain more advocates. So thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
You.
Thank you.